Hello, my name is Kate Boyd, and I am researching the cultural effects of cult movies on high school students. To be exact, my research question is to what extent do cult films influence high school culture? And the way I decided to go about this was a mixture of qualitative and quantitative data. The qualitative being data I gathered from experts who research culture and history and things of that nature. The quantitative is from the data I pulled from my survey that I did of cult movie fans, which was heavily biased due to the fact that I was at a Rocky Horror showing and I only got 30 surveys versus the amount I wanted. But it really did help even just that feeling. The comparative analysis is going between the data I gathered with my survey and the data that I pulled from experts to see if I was right that there is something there, or I was wrong and if there was nothing there and I'm just crazy. However, I decided to do it anyway. There were two things I really needed to define before we continue on, and the first one is cult films. This is impossible to define for mass society because everybody comes up with their own definition of it. So I defined it my way and used that for my paper. And to me that there are three defining characteristics of a cult film. The first thing is people. And no, not the actors or directors, I mean people, the audience, who watch it, who learn that script better than the actors sometimes it seems. These films have an obsessive quality to them, be it the way that it's acted out, or the way the lines are delivered, or just the fact that it's so awesome, man. And the last thing is that they're pleasurable to watch no matter how many times you watch them. You will never get sick of these movies. And so, based on that, I came up with my definition of cult films. And then youth culture, it's kind of a little tedious thing, but when I say that, I mean high school age, 13 to 19, and I did use youth culture and high school culture kind of interchangeably, because I feel like they're pretty much the same thing. The movies I did to focus my research on and kind of analyze for my paper were the Rocky Horror Picture Show, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Mean Girls, Princess Mononoke, and Pulp Fiction. So the first thing that I have to tell you is why Rocky Horror is pretty much a cult film. People love this movie, and one of the things they love is the time warp, which I will now act out for you. We have sound?
That's a great question.
Okay. So there should be music playing, but in essence, it is just, it won't play now, it's a little too late. But it is, and this is usually when you're at a showing, everybody goes up and they all do it together. So there's some additives to this that are a little vulgar for school, so we won't add them. But it is a jump to the left. And when it says a step to the right, people think step. No. You don't actually step, but you move your leg out kind of awkwardly like that. You put your hands on your hips and you bring your knees in tight. And this is when the audience shouts, but pelvic thrust, and it's very fun because you just go back and forth with it. At the end, you throw your arms up and you kind of fall to the floor, and then you get back up and you perform again. People love this because of the songs and the performance. Tim Curry does an amazing job as Dr. Frank-N-Furter in this movie. These characters are so captivating, and people will say, oh, I'm a magenta, oh, I'm a riffraff, and you identify with the characters in it, and that's one of the great things. And you can catch new things watching this movie all the time. A friend of my mom's who loves this movie realized after about 10 years of watching it, Dr. Frank-N-Furter has a pink triangle on his outfit, signifying that he was a bait to the Nazis. Which is kind of interesting. The impact of this movie on culture is that it pushed boundaries. It helped change it up. It was socially acceptable for the first time. And you start seeing people kind of ditch, all the skirts and all the everything. And you start seeing more skin show, so to say. With The Nightmare Before Christmas, it's the story of Jack Skellington, who discovers Christmas, doesn't understand what it means, but changes himself entirely to try and fit what he thinks it is. And that's very unique because what this allows people to do is relate to this movie and the journey of self-discovery, how sometimes you go down the wrong path to find out who you are, what you're meant to do. And there might be somebody like Sally yelling at you, you're not right, this isn't you, what's going on, which can oftentimes shake you up and make you realize, I'm not doing this the right way. People love the love story between Jack and Sally because unlike other movies, it's not very abusive. Jack does ignore her and doesn't listen to her advice, but that's kind of typical of people. We oftentimes don't want to listen to advice that we don't think goes with what we want to do. But in the end, Sally does persist and tell him, Jack, I told you. And he's like, yeah, you did. You know, this has a ton of merchandising to it, and people love it, and they love the characters. You know, they love Jack's skull, and they like putting it on things. And the journey of self-discovery is really the impact of this, is it helps show people that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not know who you are, and to change it, to be somebody who you are. So, that's the greatness of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Mean Girls. And yes, I do think Mean Girls is a cool film. Because it does meet my criteria. People love this movie. We love it. A couple years ago when it was the 10-year anniversary, we made a big deal about it. Hey, the fact that it was on a Wednesday meant that, you guessed it, just about everybody wore pink. This is an obsession of high school students because we see this and we can relate. Calculus is hard. We don't always remember everything. The limit may not exist, and if it doesn't, well, we have to figure out why that is and what it means. You can identify in your own school these different groups and these cliques, and it helps us realize that we do separate ourselves out, and that can lead to some turmoil in school and create unneeded tension because high school's hard enough without it. You know, this is just, I always laugh at this movie, and I know other people do too, which is just why we love watching it, is because it is funny. Because you know what? You go, Glenn, go. This movie helped break up cliques in schools. It helped us, you know, start to divide some of the lines that divided us. You know, you might have your group of friends, but that doesn't mean that you won't sit in class and talk to somebody else. You will associate and cross these borders and these division lines, which is really an impact of this, and which has really helped everybody move on in the world. And now we have Princess Mononoke, which is kind of my most obscure film in this lineup. What it basically is Mononoke, who is the girl here with all the war face paint on her, it has been raised by the forest spirits. And what she does is that she tries to stop this mining town, which is completely destroying and polluting the environment. The movie is a harsh critique of the Japanese Industrial Revolution, which happened pretty much coincidingly with the European Industrial Revolution, and the fact that they turned their backs on tradition. They stopped respecting the land and everything, and this helps show us we have poisoned it, and it is our fault, and we need to do something about it. You know, people like this movie because it is so well made. The story is so intricate and detailed, as are most of Studio Ghibli's films. The director behind this has many other films, and they're all harsh critiques of something. They all have strong social commentary hidden behind a seemingly innocent child's movie. This movie helped realize that humanity has made some serious errors throughout its way, and that just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should. Just because we can destroy the environment and get ahead doesn't mean that we should. And that has really come to be, and the fact that you did have protests against government, you know, polluting this, or people doing this, the fact that we have changed that, and we don't think it's acceptable to just, you know, let the world die. So, Pulp Fiction is pretty crazy. You have 4 storylines that go through all of this, and they're kind of hard to follow. So we'll start here with Jules and Vincent. The movie pretty much starts out with them. And they go into an apartment. They are hitmen for the mobster Marcellus Wallace. And so they're in there doing their job. And Marcellus Wallace is married over here to Nia Wallace, who is dancing with Vincent because at a time before Jules and Vincent went to the apartment, he had to watch her one night while Wallace was missing. Well, where was Marcellus Wallace? Well, that's where Bruce Willis comes into play. He frees Marcellus Wallace from the basement of a captive holding him who intended to do some pretty vile things to him. And so that's how Bruce Willis ties into all of this. And what you have here is Honey Bunny and Pumpkin, who are in the diner that Jules and Vincent are in at the end of the movie. And all of these storylines continue throughout the movie. So you'll have a couple scenes here, a couple scenes here, and you have to try and figure out how they all piece together in the end, which is actually a really cool thing. People love quoting this movie. I love quoting this movie. I love the line, "That is a tasty burger." Thank you, Samuel Jackson. the delivery and the performance that these actors gave is what people obsess with. Samuel L. Jackson's character goes on a holier-than-thou rant, quoting directly from the Bible as he is about to shoot somebody. Wow, it just really makes you go, now that's how you deliver lines. You know, we love this movie because we love to recite it, we love to catch new things. Like, there's some extreme foreshadowing in this movie that is so hard to find and point out, but it makes it so rich and so detailed, which is amazing. This movie is just kind of a cool, fun to watch movie. And so we realized that there's multiple sides to every story. So it's helped culture by sitting down, realizing, listening to it all, and then judging, which has been a major thing in recent times. So I did do a survey. These are all the questions, are kind of confusing. What's really important here is not the left side of the screen, but right. This list of movies I have here, it includes everything from Repo Man to Fight Club to Monty Python to This Is Spinal Tap. All of these movies to somebody is a cult movie. To somebody it matters so much that they obsess, that they love it no matter what. And that's one of the coolest things about it is you can meet somebody who has a completely different definition of it, but you're probably going to find a movie that overlaps between yours and their definition of a cult film. You do see a rise after the 80s into the 90s and continuing on of people who are interested in cult films, which does correlate to something that the experts say that we change more each generation. The chart on the left is actually kind of interesting because if I put on another point that had people say it was multiple characteristics that make a cult film, like if they said it was both acting and the concept of it, then that completely skews my data because 19 out of 30 people think that it's more than just one characteristic. And so that's pretty crazy that it's not just one thing. It's often multiple things. And then what's also crazy is the fact that not everybody's into them in high school. Sometimes it does take college, sometimes it takes later, but you have been infected by them and impacted by them. I guarantee it. So what we have here is that experts say generations change the status quo from the last one pretty rapidly nowadays. You know, we are so much more different now than we were 10 years ago, or 15 or 20 years ago. And part of that is the speed at which technology changes, which is pretty cool and interesting. And this does match with what I found in my survey was, we do see a rise in people who like these movies and who are interested in them. And just looking around, you can see some of the older people are still dressed kind of conservatively. And you can see that today through the ideas that our grandparents tell you, or even you tell your children, you can't wear that. So films do have an impact on youth culture, and they have for a long time now. You see it through various ways. You know, we now have different sayings that we never had before, and we got rid of old ones. You know, how many times have you heard a kid say, we wear pink on Wednesdays? Or something from a movie, you're like, how do they know that movie? That's older than they are. The fact that I can stand up here and talk about these is because my mother got me so interested in them. I love cult movies. They're one of my favorite things to sit down and watch. And I will watch the weirdest movies. They're like, why are you watching that? It just doesn't make sense. But it's because I love them. And because they interest me so much. You know, they help change style. You know, Rocky Horror drastically helped change things because for the first time you saw these wild, crazy outfits that exposed you to the world versus the conservative view of, oh, put on your sweater, put on your long skirt. No, we wear pants nowadays because, well, we like pants. You know, some of these define generations. You have The Breakfast Club, which is said to help define the 80s and what it really meant to be a child of the 80s. You do see over time you do see the effect of these movies. It's hard to pinpoint in an exact generation where it happens, but at some point we shift. And mainly it's through people. You know, we're all differently impacted at different levels by all of this, which is one of the craziest things is it's not broad. You can look at a wide scope of kids and they're not all going to be into them. You're probably going to find one or two who love these, a couple more that are interested, and then you'll have some who are like, I would never watch that. But it's crazy because we've changed with them. We have changed what is socially acceptable over time. And I think these movies do have a good part to do with that.
Okay, so Kate, I have just a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
As you were doing your research over this, was there a source that stood out as, particularly important as you were conducting your research, and why?
It's kind of not one, but like the movies I looked at were the most impactful because that's where I could pull direct evidence from. Like, okay, so this part of this movie shows this, and this part of that one shows this. We have all of this change that goes on, and we can see that over time. Looking at The Nightmare Before Christmas, learning that journey of self-discovery is very important, and a lot of people say that they have to go out and find themselves in the world, and that is exactly what we learned from Jack Skellington.
Okay, and what might some real-world implications of your findings be?
I think that we'll take a second and look at these movies a little bit deeper. We'll take the second to think about what they all mean, and why we care, and why we keep making them, and why we keep doing what we're doing. We'll take a second and we'll look around us and we'll see beyond people. We'll see what's really there. We'll see culture, and we'll learn more about the world because we're able to see not just people and how we interact, but how cultures interact, which is crazy.
If you could revisit this process, what would you do differently? Would it be a different area of
I wouldn't do it at all. This has caused me so much stress. I have had little sleep for the past couple of weeks. I would never do this again, and sorry, College Board, do not ever let children do this. This is way too much stress and craziness.
Okay, thanks, Kate.
Yep. No, never again. I hate research.